قادمش، آندم که جبرائیل امین بود خادمش. اهل ستم به پهلوی خیر النسا زدند، بس آتشی ز اخگر الماس ریزه ها افروختند و در حسن مجتبی زدند. وانگه سرادقی که ملک محرمش نبود کندند از مدینه و در کربلا زدند. وستیشه ستیزه در آن دشت کوفیان، وستیشه ستیزه در آن دشت کوفیان، پس نخل ها ز گلشن آل عبا زدند. پس ضربتی که از آن جگر مصطفی درید، پس ضربتی که از آن جگر مصطفی درید، بر حلق تشنه خلف مرتضی زدند. اهل حرم درید، اهل حرم دریده گریبان گشوده مو، فریاد بر در حرم کبریا زدند. روح الامین نهاده به زانو سر از حجاب، تاریک شد ز دیدن آن چشم آفتاب. چون خون ز حلق تشنه او بر زمین رسید، چون خون ز حلق تشنه او بر زمین رسید، جوش از زمین به ذروه عرش برین رسید. نزدیک بود که خانه ایمان شود خراب، از پس شکست ها که به ارکان دین رسید. نخل بلند او چو خسان بر زمین زدند، طوفان به آسمان ز غبار زمین رسید. بعد آن غبار چون به مزار نبی رسان، گرد از مدینه بر فلک هفتمین رسید. یک باره جامه در خم گردون بنیل زد، چون این خبر به عیسی گردون نشین رسید. پر شد فلک ز غلغله چون نوبت خروش، از انبیا به حضرت روح الامین رسید. کرد این خیال وهم غلط کار کان غبار، تا دامن جلال جهان آفرین رسید. هست از ملال گرچه بری ذات ذوالجلال، هست از ملال گرچه بری هست ذوالجلال، او در دل است و هیچ دلی نیست بی ملال. ترسم جزای قاتل او چون رقم زنند، ترسم جزای قاتل او چون رقم زنند، یک باره بر جریده رحمت قلم زنند. ترسم کسی این گناه شفیعان روز حشر، دارند شرم که از گناه خلق دم زنند. دست عتاب حق بدر آید ز آستین، چون اهل بیت دست در اهل ستم زنند. آه از دمی که با کفن خونچکان ز خاک، آه از دمی که با کفن خونچکان ز خاک، آل علی چو شعله آتش علم زنند. فریاد از آن زمان که جوانان اهل بیت، فریاد از آن زمان که جوانان اهل بیت، گلگون کفن به عرصه محشر قدم زنند. جمعی که زد به هم صفشان شور کربلا، در حشر صف زنان مست صف محشر به هم زنند. از صاحب حرم چی توقع کنند باز، از صاحب حرم چی توقع کنند باز، آن ناکسان که تیغ به صید حرم زنند. پس بر زنان کنند سری را که جبرائیل، شوید غبار گیسویش از آب سلسبیل. صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد.
I was Sayyid Kareem reciting this beautiful poem. Just a reminder, inshallah, before I invite our respected Sheikh, a few announcements as I've been mentioning in these nights, just so that inshallah the brothers and sisters can make most out of it. Firstly, the donations, the call for donations, that not only limited to the Muharram events, but for the events throughout the year. Inshallah, Sultan Uncle over here, as well as Brother Azim Anwar will be available. If anyone would like to make in-person donations, they can do so, or they can also e-transfer. Inshallah, I'll also try to make this announcement before Salat, so that if anyone forgets, at least you'll have these opportunities to make the donations. We have the sign-up sheet posted right under the thermostat on the brother's side, so if anyone would like to make recitations, inshallah, they can do so. Also, starting tomorrow, we'll be doing the Dua Kumail. Starting tomorrow, we'll be starting the program at 7:30, inshallah. So we'll have our respected Sheikh address the Majlis a bit earlier. And the reason for that is so as we understand that there will be more recitations, more brothers and sisters, more brothers would like to participate in the recitations by reciting, and inshallah all the mu'mineen, the brothers and sisters participating in the matam and the hearing and lamenting. So to accommodate more reciters, inshallah we've tried to make more time for them. Now without any further delay, I'll request our respected Dr. Muhammad Ali Ismail to address this Majlis I'Aza. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث إلى كافة الورى شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته أئمة الهدى ومصابيح الدجى الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما توفيقي إلا بالله عليه توكلت وإليه أنيب صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. In our series of lectures this Muharram titled Echoes of the Prophets, Timeless Spiritual Guidance from Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Quran, we have to date discussed fully two echoes that Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, reflected in his conduct from the teachings of the prophets depicted in the Quran. Those two echoes that we've discussed fully were firstly empathy, as shown by none other than Rasulul Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And secondly, the etiquette of supplication, as demonstrated by Prophet Adam ala nabina wa alayhi salam. And last night, we started the third echo, so we only discussed it partially. And that was the etiquette of inviting people to God, as demonstrated by Prophet Hud, ala nabiyina wa alayhi salam. And inshallah, tonight we will complete that third echo. And inshallah, we will see how it continues from those 5 lessons that we examined yesterday. So you will recall the 5 etiquettes that were demonstrated by Prophet Hud. Whenever we want to call people to God, to the truth, to the religion, we should adopt these etiquettes as Sayyid al-Shuhada did as well. So you will recall that these etiquettes involved many different aspects, including things like making sure that we are doing it sincerely. So only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are only seeking our reward from Him, that we use rational and logical argumentation in our invitation, that we call people to repentance, and we tell them about the promise of divine rewards and blessings. So that was a summary of the 5 etiquettes that we discussed last night from those 2 verses in Surah Hud. And in this lecture, we'll continue looking at that series of verses from Surah Hud, and we'll derive another 4 etiquettes. So altogether, 9 profound lessons in calling people to God, how it should be done, and of course, as demonstrated in the most beautiful manner by Aba Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala wa ali Muhammad. Now, the questions that we will therefore seek to answer this evening are threefold. First of all, what additional etiquette does Prophet Hud teach us from his narrative in the Quran with regard to inviting people to the truth and to God and the religion? Secondly, how does Sayyid al-Shuhada echo those teachings of Prophet Hud in his conduct? And thirdly, what lessons can we gain from the practice of tawakkul to help us navigate the challenges that we face in today's world? Insha'Allah, we'll begin our exploration of these 3 questions with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So we'll begin by looking at those verses from Surah Hud that describe his encounter with the Ad, who we discussed yesterday, and also what happened to them and their great city, Iram, that was destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we'll see these lessons that we can gain. So beginning now from verse number 54. And of course, like I said yesterday, these verses are displayed so that mu'mineen can also look at them, either the Arabic or the English, whatever they like, and they can also ponder and reflect over them and try to come up with their thinking around these verses. And perhaps you might even spot new things. As I am delivering my side of the lecture, you might come up with some new insights. This happens all the time. This is the miraculous nature of the Quran, that it's not limited to what one person says about the verses. There will be so many other messages that inshallah you yourselves will be able to derive as we go through these. So from verse number 54, he says, إن نقول إلا أتراك بعد آلهتنا بسوء قال إني أشهد الله واشهد أني بريء مما تشركون. The translation first. All we can say is that one of our gods has smitten you with evil. So who is saying this? This is the Ad. Remember the context of it. Prophet Hud has been sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide the Ad from their idolatry and their sinful ways. When he's doing that, as we saw yesterday, he's inviting them to monotheism and rightful conduct. This is their response. Now this is very significant because a lot of the time when we invite people to goodness and the truth, we get accused with all sorts of accusations. And sometimes they are even hostile and violent. So it's not always going to be the way we want it to go. Sometimes it can have a negative or even a hostile response. So this is important to discuss as well. Yesterday, we were discussing many of the positive aspects and the methods of inviting, etc., etc. But these are also methods to deal with hostile and negative responses. We're doing our part. But if the other side responds with negativity, with name calling, with accusation, sometimes even hostility, then what should we do? So today's lecture is very much about that as well. How to deal with the negative response. Look what happens to Prophet Hud. This is what they say. They said that, one of our lords, because remember they worshipped many, many gods, has smitten you with evil. You have been cursed somehow by our lords, and so you're not in the correct way of thinking. Your mind is disturbed. This is the accusation. And then we'll see how it applies also to Sayyid al-Shuhada later and see his response. Now, what is his response? He responds to this negativity and hostility with faith. Allahu Akbar. This is the great Prophet of Allah responding in this amazing way. I call God to witness, and you two are my witnesses that this is the key word, disassociate myself from those you set up as partners with God. So the first lesson for tonight is disassociation from falsehood. Disassociation simply means distancing. What Nabi Hud is saying is that, okay, if this is your response, I've tried my best. If this is what you're going to say, then I am going to distance myself from you. Disassociation, bara'a. He's doing bara'a here. Tabarra, right, is from the same root. When you distance yourself and don't associate with others. Now, this is very, very important, because it tells us that not always our efforts are going to have benefits and results. And so then what do? Well, we should always take a step back. Don't always expect our efforts to yield results. But when we take a step back, look at the way he does it. Does he confront them? They're calling him names. But does he respond and say, no, it's you who are crazy or are wrongful? He says, I am distancing myself from you, and Allah is my witness, you are my witness, and I am standing steadfast on my beliefs. A number of points here. First of all, whenever this type of negativity comes our way, we should respond in this firm, definitely we have to be firm, but clear and also respectful manner. That's very important. Because just imagine if he had responded in the same way, then what? Forever the door is closed. Because if you have an altercation, if you have an argument with someone who you want to call, right? You want them to come towards goodness and the truth. If it ends up being an argument, what are the chances in the future of that person turning back and saying, you know what, I am now ready to come to you and to what you are saying? The chances are very low, isn't it? They're not going to feel like ever coming to you again. You ended badly. You had an argument. You called each other names. What this is telling us is that if we are not successful, leave the door open. By definitely putting up a firm stance. I'm distancing myself from you. You don't have to necessarily say it, but you practice that distance, and you leave the door open for perhaps future reconciliation. Perhaps a week later, a month later, a year later, something might happen that the person comes back. So this is a very important lesson of leaving the door open for potential future returning to the path of the truth. Now, one other thing that we get from this verse is the fact that he says that you are my witnesses as well. And so it makes them think that yes, actually we are, in the wrong here. We are witness to what he said. And actually, there is some point. It makes them think about this. So now, we are going to deal with question 1 and 2 together for all of these 4 lessons and etiquettes. So the second question was, how does Abu Abdullah echo these etiquettes, right? Let's take, as soon as we do one lesson from Nabi Hud, we'll see how Abu Abdullah echoes it. And we'll keep doing that. And so cover both questions together, all right? And by the way, all of these examples, I'm trying to give a vast range of examples from Sayyid al-Shuhada's life and his epic journey and sacrifice. So that, in fact, by the end of the sessions that we're having, the 11, 12 nights of Majalis, if you were to put all these snippets together from Abu Abdullah's life and his journey to Karbala and what happened there as well, you would probably get a very good idea of what transpired. So in addition to learning these akhlaqi points and sometimes aqeedahi points and historical points, etc., it's also, inshallah, providing us with eventually a full picture of what transpired. So let me give you this example now. This example is with regard to Abu Abdullah about to leave Mecca. Okay? Now, what happens there is the governor of Mecca is Amr. His name is Amr. And this, Amr ibn Sa'id. And this Amr, the governor of Mecca, and his people tried to stop Abu Abdullah from leaving Mecca, right, to go to Kufa. You know, he was invited by the Kufans, so Abu Abdullah wants to accept the invitation and guide them. He's trying to prevent them. Look what he says. Just like the Ad said to Prophet Hud, it looks like you are gone crazy, and they put all these allegations on him. The same thing this Amr does as well. He says, don't you fear God? He's addressing Abu Abdullah. Don't you fear God? Then he carries on. He says that you are leaving and separating from your community. He's accusing him of separation. And you are causing division in the community. Abu Abdullah wants to save people, and he's accusing him of causing division. Look at the accusations. When people are stuck, or sometimes they don't even realize how far low they've gone, they bring up all sorts of excuses and sort of like accusations and allegations against you. Don't be put off. Nabi Hud wasn't put off. How does Abu Abdullah respond? Again, if he had have confronted him, there's a time and place for proper confrontation and all the rest of it. As we see in Karbala, of course, there's a time and place when there's no other way. But if there are other ways, you don't go to confrontation first and foremost. You respond logically, rationally, respectfully, keeping the door open. So what does he say to him? He recites verse 41 of Surah Yunus. Verse 41 is as follows. So one part of it, he says, Li amali walakum amalukum. Alhamdulillah. That means, my actions are mine. Your actions are yours. That's it. He suffices with that. He doesn't go into any altercations and arguments with him. Why? When you are confronted by the Jahilun, qalu salama, isn't it? إِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. As Surah Al-Furqan tells us, when you are confronted with the ignorant people, respond with peace and logic and reason. That's what he does. And then the verse goes on to say that you have disassociated yourself from what I do, and I have disassociated myself from what you do. Disassociation. Distancing from the other side. If it's not working, don't force it. Distance yourself, and then inshallah things will happen in the future. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Secondly, verse number 55 now. And this is part of it, and because the verse mentions other things that are not that relevant for our discussion. فَكِيدُونِي جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ لَا تُنْذِرُونَ. So plot against me, all of you, and give me no respite. Right? Don't give me any chance. Meaning, despite all your claims of power, you know, they were physically very strong, and all the grandeur and blessings you have, you are powerless. You are powerless against the Almighty, and we'll come to that in a moment. So this is an amazing statement. Picture this. The context is so important, like I've been saying the last couple of nights. Just imagine the situation. Even if, okay, let me put it like this. Us as believers, we are together in a group, okay? And then you have someone who is rejecting totally our beliefs, right? Just imagine if that happened. This is a situation. How would we feel, right? We'd probably feel angered and annoyed and perhaps even offended. This is the situation Nabi Hud finds himself in. There's a big crowd, the Ad, remember, very powerful, and he is totally rejecting their beliefs. Allahu Akbar. What does this tell us? This is the second lesson in inviting people. We need to be steadfast. We need to be courageous. Just imagine that. How courageous was he? There's a very angry group in front of him. They're accusing him of being a little bit insane and offending their gods. And yet, he's saying, plot against me. Do what you want. Oh, that is quite inspirational. Do what you want. I am going to stand on my foundations and beliefs. Courage, steadfastness. And at the same time, making sure that he does not start anything that will forever close the door. Now, where do we see this in the example of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah Hussein, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi? Well, there are many examples of Abu Abdullah's steadfastness. You could point to the whole of the day of Ashura and even before then, right? Steadfastness, standing firmly to your beliefs, not wavering because others are more than you, others are more powerful than you. No, if you have the truth, that's it. That's the most powerful thing you have. And so let's have a look at some examples. Well, we can point to what happened on the day of Ashura. On the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein alayhi salam begins, so this is after all the companions and family members have all been martyred. He's by himself. He calls the enemy soldiers to fight him one-on-one. Allahu Akbar. So, like, just one-to-one combat. Each person that comes forward, he kills. Each person comes forward, he kills. And then he is in such a situation that he even gives the humanity, all of us who are looking at this event hundreds and hundreds of years in the future, to reflect on. He starts reciting poetry. Listen to this poetry that he recites, these famous lines. Al-qatlu awla min rukubil ar wal aru awla min dukhulin nar. Allahu Akbar. How beautiful is that? Immortal words. He says, death is better than being engulfed in humiliation and shame. It's better to die than being humiliated. But then he says, but humiliation is better than entering the hellfire. Allahu Akbar. Steadfastness, courage, bravery. Because, yes, he never had anyone with him now. He's fighting one-on-one. But he's still able to demonstrate steadfastness and courage. Even reciting poetry that's lasted all these 1400 years and will continue lasting until the Imam of the time, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajul Sharif, comes. Allahumma salli ala man wa ali Muhammad. And then, amazingly, again, let's just finish that incident off. Courage and steadfastness. The reporter says that I never saw any person whose family was killed, whose companions were killed, whose children were killed, more brave, listen to the words, more brave than Hussein. And he says that when he attacked them, it was like a wolf among goats. And they scattered like locusts. What amazing imagery this reporter reports. A wolf among goats, they scattered like locusts. Bravery, steadfastness, yet always sticking to his principles, never going down the route of humiliation. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thirdly, and this is the next verse number 56. So he says, Inni Yeah, no worries. Inni, I'll carry on reading it, and then when it comes, you can all follow it. Inni tawakkaltu ala Allahi rabbi wa rabbikum ma min dabbatin illa huwa akhidun binasiyatiha inna rabbi ala siratin mustaqim. So the translation is, I put my trust in God. Now, you can probably guess what this lesson is all about. I put my trust in God. Tawakkaltu, right? And in my Lord and your Lord. There is no moving creature that he does not hold by its forelock. My Lord's way is straight. So, what is this telling us? This is the third etiquette that Nabi Hud teaches us when inviting people to God. And that is trusting in God, tawakkul. He says that I am effectively, this is what he's saying, paraphrasing what he's saying here. I trust in a power that is immeasurable. If I have this power, then I am absolutely supported. I don't need anything else. I don't need anyone else. And because of this trust in God, I have this confidence. And I'm able to say what I'm saying. I'm able to do what I'm doing. And you will all be answerable. And then he gives this example, this metaphor of holding on to the forelock of an animal. Now, this metaphor needs a little bit of explaining. Why does he use this example? So, the exact words are that there is no creature, moving creature, that he does not hold by its forelock. My Lord's way is straight. The forelock is the hair at the front of the head. Okay? This idea is that if you grab somebody's forelock, their hair at the front, or an animal's forelock, what happens? Are they able to move freely? It's one of the best ways to stop a person or an animal moving, right? Grabbing them by the forelock. Their movements are restricted. This is a fantastic example and metaphor of dominance. He could have easily said, Allah dominates everything. Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. We have verses like that. Fine. Allah is powerful of everything. But remember, who were the Ad? Yesterday I described the Ad as being very prosperous. They were farmers. They were people engaged in agriculture. They were blessed with lush grass and excellent land and lots of cattle, etc., etc. So, this is an amazing lesson. This is a side lesson. The main lesson is trust in God. But a side point is use language and examples that are effective for the other person. Whenever we invite people to God, it's no good giving examples that, I don't know, perhaps we know in our mother tongue, right? There are fantastic examples in Gujarati, but I can't say them here, for example, because only a few people will understand. I have to use examples that people will understand. Same with all of you, whether it's Farsi or Urdu or Arabic, not just the language, but the type of example. I could say something in one language and it perhaps make people laugh. Say the same thing translated into another language, they'll be like, whoa, what's that all about? You know, you'd be embarrassed. And so what he does is he chooses an example that they can relate to. They love their animals. They can relate to controlling animals. So what he says is, this is how God is. There's no single moving creature, but that God has dominance over them. He controls them fully. It's like when you people grab hold of your animals with their forelock, they can't move. You are controlling them. So that was just a side point. But the main point is trust. Now, let's relate it to Abu Abdullah. What examples can we give of Abu Abdullah echoing trust in God, tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So, in fact, the examples are so many that we can't just say he demonstrated trust here or there. His whole movement was a movement of tawakkul. Start to finish. I'll just give you one at the start, one at the end. And then inshallah, you can look into, and there are so many other examples. At the start, how does he echo this quality of Nabi Hud? Well, yesterday we discussed his will, isn't it? The final will of Sayyidul Shuhada that he wrote to his half-brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiya as he was leaving Medina. How does he end the will? He ends the will by quoting verse number 88 of Surah Hud, which is actually Nabi Shu'aib talking to his people. So again, remember I said right at the beginning, throughout his epic journey, he's constantly quoting and remembering prophets. That's why we titled these lectures Echoes of the Prophets, right? Totally, from start to finish, all the time. In each stage, he's quoting prophets. He's following their examples. This time, Nabi Shu'aib. It's the verse I recited at the beginning of this majlis. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ توكلت وإليه أنيب. After he signed off after he's told Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, I'm leaving to save my people and to make sure that the teachings of my grandfather and my father are upheld, to do amr bil ma'ruf, nahy anil munkar, etc., etc. At the end, he signs off like this, that there is no success, there's no tawfiq, except from Allah. Only on Him do I trust, and only to Him do I return. It's quite amazing. He starts off, and this is, of course, he's teaching us as well. What is he teaching? Whatever you start with tawakkul. Start with the trust and reliance on God. Big or small. Anything you do, start with tawakkul, and your action will be blessed. It'll have barakah. It'll have tawfiq. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. That was one example, and I said his whole journey, start to finish, is one of tawakkul. What about at the end? At the end, well, this is a very sad part of his whole story, of course, because it concerns his last dua. But let's discuss, how was he at this point? He's only got a few moments left to live. And he's facing the end of his temporary life in this world. Now, of course, you all know, I don't want to go into Masaib right now, but you all know how he is at this moment. Absolutely covered in wounds and arrows and the jabs of spears. But what does he say at that moment? In his final dua, one of the parts is as follows. وَأَسْتَعِينُ بِكَ ضَعِيفًا وَأَتَوَكَّلُ عَلَيْكَ كَافِيًا. Allahu Akbar. He says, being weak, because now he's in his final moments, being weak, I seek help only from you. He's only talking to God now. He doesn't address anyone else. Being weak, I seek help only from you. And you being sufficient for me, I place my trust only in you. Allahu Akbar. At the end, he does tawakkul. At the beginning, he does tawakkul. Throughout, he does tawakkul. So my dear brothers and sisters, this is something that we need to inculcate in our actions. Whatever we do, from start to beginning, rely on God. At the end, when I address that third question, I'll point to some modern studies from Statistics Canada, and I will tell you about how tawakkul can really help us navigate the challenges of the modern world. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And the fourth and final etiquette that Nabi Hud demonstrates is the one mentioned here in verse 57. فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ مَا أُرْسِلْتُ بِهِ إِلَيْكُمْ. But if you turn away, I have already delivered to you what I have been sent with. Conveying one's message clearly and fulfilling one's duty. What does he say? He says that if you turn away, well, I've delivered what I had to deliver. So this tells us that when we are inviting people to God, we are not always going to be successful. Of course not. Is that a problem? Let's say we've done quite a lot of work, on one person or a group of people. I gave some examples last night of how this could be applied. But we are not successful. Is that a problem? Are we going to be rewarded, or is Allah going to withhold His reward? Of course He's going to reward us, because our duty is to convey. That's it. Our duty is to get the word out there. Is our duty to make sure people understand and believe? That's not our duty. That's in the hands of Allah. The hearts of people, the souls of people are not in our hands. All we can do is demonstrate how to go about calling people to God through these 9 ways, 5 yesterday, 4 today. That's it. If we have tried our best, sincerely, then we can expect enormous rewards. Nabi Hud teaches us this. He says that if you turn away from me, well, I have conveyed to you my message. This is very important. We should never give up. If one time we fail, another time we fall on our faces, it doesn't matter. We keep going, because this is the example of Nabi Hud. And we'll see how Abu Abdullah put this into action as well. So it means that always we follow in the example of these great prophets. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell the most great prophet of all? Does He tell them, oh Rasulullah, you have to make sure people understand. You have to make sure that people believe, otherwise you failed? He doesn't say that. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا بَلَاغُ الْمُبِينِ. The only duty for the Rasul, for the blessed Prophet of Islam, is to deliver the message clearly and properly. That's it. Balagul Mubin. That's all we have to do. So my brothers and sisters, please don't despair if our efforts, like I said, it's not for Mubaligeen only. Any person with any level of knowledge, any opportunity that arises, if they have a lot of knowledge or a little bit of knowledge, it's always incumbent on us to do some Balagul Mubin in our own way. Yes, sometimes people will have lots of knowledge. Others won't have so much knowledge. Fine. In your own way, through your actions. Sometimes the best way to bring people to God and to truth is through good actions, good akhlaq, good behavior, being good citizens, not doing anything illegal, not doing anything sinful, not doing anything unethical. Sometimes it's not a sin or illegal, but it's unethical. When they see that, you are doing Balagul Mubin. You are conveying the message, and you will get rewarded for that. Now, final example echoed by Sayyid al-Shuhada. Where do we see this on the day of Ashura? Well, we are told, again, a little bit before the final moments, of course, when the army comes towards Sayyid al-Shuhada, what does he do? He sees them coming, right? Umar ibn Sa'd's army. He gets on his horse. He rides out to them, and the narrator says, I was looking at the wording very, very closely, in his loudest voice. Nabi Hud says, I conveyed my message. I did my best. In his loudest voice, he shouts to them. He tells them that all I want is for you to understand what I'm saying. I want you to accept my words. And I want you to understand the reasons why I'm here. He's telling them all of this. He's doing Balagul Mubin. Can he force them? No. They will accept, reject. That's not in his hands. He's telling them that if you accept, then you will be saved. If you don't accept, then proceed. Proceed with the plan that you have. And I will rely on God, etc. And he finishes his statement there. So he has done exactly what Nabi Hud did, and that is to convey the message clearly, loudly, fulfilling our duty. I have a duty, you have a duty, we all have duties according to our level of knowledge, our opportunities, our experiences, and the tawfiq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And the third and final question was about how can tawakkul help us navigate and manage the challenges of contemporary life. So what I did was I wanted to find out the other benefits of tawakkul, because definitely there are enormous benefits. I'm sure we've all experienced them in our lives, right? When we have proper, sincere tawakkul and reliance on God. So saw this research, is Statistics Canada. This is the official statistics body for Canada, right? It provides Canadians with statistics and information on society, the economy, the environment. And one of the surveys they did, instead of like every 10 years, in 2022, was to see the rates of mental health disorders. Okay? Mental health disorders. Do you know the top 2 that came out? The first, the foremost mental health disorder in Canada is anxiety. And the second is depression. So I looked into this and I thought, wow, the Tawakkul can seriously help here. I'll show you why. But first, some of the statistics. And surprisingly, it was getting more and more prevalent among the youth, among young people. This is very remarkable. So things like social anxiety and paranoia, right? Things like panic disorder. These are on the increase, especially among the youth. So they found that in 2022, 5.2% of Canadians aged 15 and older have this disorder called generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. Generalized anxiety disorder. What is that? That means for at least 6 months, the person has severe worry and anxiety over several events and issues. Okay? So this person is going through this. 5.2% of Canadians. And I want you to see, okay, is it on the rise or not? Since the last time they did the survey in 2012, you know how much it's gone up by? It's doubled. In 2012 is 2.6%. In 2022, 5.2%. Doubled over 10 years. And same with so many other disorders. Major depressive episodes, right? So very, sort of like intense episodes of depression. That also rose. In 2012, it was 4.7%. In 2022, 7.6%. The world is becoming more and more anxious and more depressed. So it's not just about Canada. I've seen similar things elsewhere. Why? If we are progressing so much in terms of our health, like physical health, we live longer, we live more healthy lives, our comfort that we have, the material possessions, technology, knowledge. So why more and more depression? Things like, youngsters not having the confidence to interact in society. Social paranoia. They have paranoia to be among people. This is a big problem. Big problem. Now, I'm only going to mention a few things, and definitely the topic is much more sophisticated than what I'm going to mention in a moment. And it's very complex. So I'm not, even scratching the surface here. It's an area where professionals need to get involved and help, and definitely it needs to be explored in depth. But from a religious perspective, from the perspective of our topic, and bearing in mind the time that we have left, I just want to put forward a few pieces of advice as to how tawakkul can help with these type of disorders. First of all, anxiety. Well, when you have tawakkul very properly, sincerely, it really gives you extra confidence. Just like Nabi Hud, he says that I am relying on the most powerful being. When you have proper, deep conviction about this, that I am relying on the most powerful being, the most perfect, knowledgeable being, then it gives you confidence. It stops you from worrying too much about the future. It makes you more present, what's happening right now. Anxiety and worried, what's going to happen? What's going to happen tomorrow? It's a very serious problem. But tawakkul means that I rely on God. He's Hakim, all-wise. He's Alim, all-knowledgeable. He will definitely make things for the best. There might be some trials and tribulations. They are for the best as well. I need to pass them properly. And everything will be fine. This world is just a temporary place anyway. And I have hope that as long as I'm performing my duties properly and sincerely, Allah will look after me. That can seriously raise the person out of that anxiety. How about depression? Same thing. With tawakkul, the person can appreciate the fact that, yes, okay, I'm going through a bad patch, but these are all tests from Allah. And I need to get through it with my iman and amul salih. I cannot start leaving things and ignoring all of my duties. Again, Allah is the most powerful. He has a plan. And this divine plan, He's demonstrated over the centuries with all the prophets, with the Imams, with Imam Hussein and the 12th Holy Imam. He has a very big blueprint, a master plan for me and for everyone. I'm part of this, and I am a being that Allah loves. He cherishes. He calls me Ashraful Makhluqat, and I have the ability to become His Khalifa. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. When Allah says that I am appointing on the earth a Khalifa, it's not just Nabi Adam, it applies to all human beings who manifest His attributes. So in this way, tawakkul can certainly help us to overcome, at least to some extent, the challenges that we face with regard to mental health in the modern world. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, as a summary then, this two-part series comes to an end with this note on tawakkul. So altogether we've looked at 9 pieces of etiquette from just a few verses from Surah Hud, because it's named after that great prophet who demonstrated how he dealt with the Ad and how he relied on all of these pieces of advice. So just the 4 tonight, of course, you have to have that courage and steadfastness. You have to have tawakkul, of course. You have to make sure that you are relying on the most powerful being. You have to have that ability to stand steadfast no matter what is thrown to you. Disassociate yourself from falsehood, and always make sure that you are in that position where you are doing your duty, the balagul mubin, right? You are conveying the message. If you do these things, then inshallah you will have followed in the footsteps of Nabi Hud, and of course Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah wa sallam alayhi. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Sallallahu alayka ya ibna Rasulillah. Whenever anyone goes to the sacred land of Karbala and they go to perform the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, they always pass by a dari, which is just there on the side. This dari belongs to none other than Habib ibn Mudahir al-Asadi. How great is it? How lucky this personality is that whenever anyone goes to do their ziyarah of Abu Abdullah, they will also say salam to Habib. This is because of his great status. On the day of Ashura, all ages, all groups of society were represented. The very young, a 6-month-old baby, and the old. Habib ibn Mudahir represented that older age group. It's reported that he was 75 years old. Some reports say that Abu Abdullah actually wrote to him to come from Kufa to Karbala. And in that letter, he describes him as a learned man. This is Habib. He was a companion of Imam Hussein's father. He was a companion of Imam Hussein's brother. He helped the Kufans to gather and support Muslim ibn Aqil. This is not an ordinary person. It's reported that when Habib ibn Mudahir enters the land of Karbala, the holy lady Zainab sends her salams to him. Habib is embarrassed by the salam that comes to him. he falls on the floor. He takes a handful of the dust of Karbala and he puts it over his head and face. And he says, who am I that the lady Zainab sends her salams to? I am no one. Now this Habib ibn Mudahir, he's getting ready to now fight for Abu Abdullah. But look at the way he goes about going onto the battlefield. First of all, he gets the permission because Abu Abdullah had made him in charge of the left flank of his army, of his troops. And therefore, Habib, he comes out onto the battlefield. Now, as he comes out, just picture this old man, 75 years old, with a sword in his hand, radiant face, which is framed by white hair and beard. He comes out to fight for his master, Abu Abdullah. As he does so, he introduces himself. He recites some lines of poetry. These lines tell us a lot about his character. He says, Ana Habibun wa Abi Mudahir. If you do not know me, let me tell you who I am. I am Habib and my father is Mudahir. Farisu Hayja'a wa Harbun Tus'ar. A horseman warrior of flaming battle and war. Habib fights gallantly. He kills many of the enemy soldiers. But then one person hits him with a sword. Another person stabs him with a spear. Habib falls onto the land of Karbala. As he does so, he tries to get up. Another person hits him over the head. Habib is now face long onto the floor. And now at that time, this person, this coward goes onto the back of Habib. He grabs his white hair and he severs his head. The narrator tells us the effect this had on Abu Abdullah. فَحَدَّ مَقْتَلَهُ الْحُسَيْنِ. It means that it crushed Hussein, the killing of Habib. But now what happened was, these depraved people, they do not suffice with that. They now want to do more than that. So they now take the head of Habib ibn Mudahir, they tie it onto a horse, and the rider rides his horse in the streets of Kufa. But my brothers and sisters, there's a young boy who's following this horse around in the streets of Kufa. Wherever this rider goes, this boy is going. The rider notices that somebody is following him. He turns round. He says that, oh boy, what do you want? He says, I don't want anything. He says, no, you tell me, what do you want? You keep following me. He says that this head that you are dragging, this head belongs to my father. Give me it because I want to bury it. But he was so depraved. He was so depraved that he said that no, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad doesn't want it to be buried. And I want to use it to trade with him. Because I am the one who killed your father. But now, my brothers and sisters, of course, the head of Habib ibn Mudahir wasn't the only one that was desecrated. They also desecrated the heads of the other shuhada. They cut them all off. But now I want to leave you with 3 important differences between what they did with the heads of the shuhada and the head of Habib ibn Mudahir. Firstly, the first difference is that instead of tying the heads on horses and dragging them through Kufa, they placed them on spears and paraded them on the streets of Kufa and Sham. The second difference is that instead of making sure that nobody watched the head, it was only one boy, they made sure that all the people were watching the heads being paraded in the streets of Kufa. And the third difference, my brothers and sisters, I'll leave you with this. The third difference is, instead of a boy following the head of his father, instead of a boy following the head of his father, it was a daughter. It was Sakina. Sakina, the daughter of Imam Hussein, followed the head of her father as he was paraded in the streets of Kufa and Sham. Allah la'natullah ala al-qawmi zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيُّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Oh Allah, بحق Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Protect our Imam and hasten his appearance. O Allah, enable us to echo the etiquettes of Prophethood and Imam Hussein when inviting people to God. O Allah, forgive us and our forefathers for our sins, and O Allah, bring relief to all those facing difficulty around the world. Ya Hussein, Matum Hussein.
يا حسين 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 محمد وعلى محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. نیند آئے گی جب آپ کی بو پاؤں گی بابا، نیند آئے گی جب آپ کی بو پاؤں گی بابا، میں رات کو مقتل میں چلی آؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا، نیند آئے گی جب آپ کی بو پاؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا. فرمایا نکلتی نہیں سیدانیہ باہر، سینے پہ سلائیں گی تمہیں رات میں مادر، کیوں کہتی ہو مقتل میں چلی آؤں گی بابا، میں رات کو مقتل میں چلی آؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا، نیند آئے گی جب آپ کی بو پاؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا. آتی ہے بلا سر پہ تو پہلے مجھے وارو، مر جاؤں گی بابا، نہ سدھارو نہ سدھارو، جاؤ گے جہاں میں بھی وہی جاؤں گی بابا، میں رات کو مقتل میں چلی آؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا. شب ہوگی تو پھر خاک پہ سوئیں گے کہاں، سینے پہ تو اصغر کو سلائیں گے وہاں، اچھا میں وہی خاک پہ سو جاؤں گی بابا، میں رات کو مقتل میں چلی آؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا، نیند آئے گی جب آپ کی بو پاؤں گی بابا، چلی آؤں گی بابا. یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
محمد وآل محمد وعلى الصلوات. حسین حسین مولا یا ابا عبداللہ، حسین حسین مولا یا ابا عبداللہ، حسین حسین مولا یا ابا عبداللہ. باز محرم رسید ماہ عزای حسین، باز محرم رسید ماه عزای حسین، سینه ما می شود کرب و بلای حسین. کاش خدا قسمتم رزق حلالی کند تا که توانم کنم خرچ عزای حسین. حسین حسین مولا یا ابا عبدالله، حسین حسین کاش که ترکم شود غفلت و جرم و گناه کاش که ترکم شود غفلت و جرم و گناه تا که بگیرم صفا منز صفای حسین هر که عزادار او شیعه و غمخوار اوست ناله او میدهد سوز و صدای حسین 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 مولا یا ابا عبدالله مادر او فاطمه خوب دعاگو بود هر که بریز از چشم اشک برای حسین اشک عطای خداست هدیه خیر النساست اشک عطای خداست هدیه خیر النساست نیست کسی لایقش غیر گدای حسین 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 مولا یا ابا عبدالله حسین حسین مولا یا ابا عبدالله ماه محرم کند جامع رازی رو جمله جوانان شود مست ولای حسین بهتر از این گریه ها نیست صلاحی به دست بهتر از این گریه ها نیست صلاحی به دست تا که بماند بدین دین خدای حسین 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 مولا یا ابا عبدالله حسین حسین مولا یا ابا عبدالله یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین As the Sheikh had mentioned the masa'ib about the heads of the martyrs, how they were hanged. ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں قصر ایک غیور وفادار پہ اب اور ستم کیا ہوگا جس کی چادر کا محافظ تھا وہی آج ہوئی بے پردہ شام والوں اسی احساس سے دوران سفر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں قصر گر گئی راہ میں ناقص سکینہ تو یہ زینب نے کہا ایک چچا اور بھتیجی کی محبت تو ذرا دیکھے خدا پشت ناقے پہ سنبھلتی نہیں شہ کی دختر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا عباس کا سر شام کے لوگ تماشائی بنے اور تماشا سادہ بے وطن اور کھلے سر ہے سر راہ کرے کیا سادہ خون آنکھوں سے بہاتے ہیں شہ جن و بشر نو کے زینب پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا نہیں عباس کا سر ڈر ہے کلثوم کے چہرے پہ نہ پڑ جائے نظر نو کے نیزہ پہ ٹھہرتا عباس کا سر آندھیوں خاک اڑاؤ کا بنے اس سے حرم کا پردہ गूंजी जब शाम की गमनाक फिजाओं में ये ज़ैनब की सदा, आसमां रोने लगा रोई ज़मीं ये कहकर, नोके नेज़ा पे ठहरता नहीं अब्बास का सर। डर है कुलसूम के चेहरे पे न पड़ जाए नज़र, नोके नेज़ा पे ठहरता नहीं अब्बास का सर। डर है कुलसूम के चेहरे पे न पड़ जाए नज़र, नोके नेज़ा पे ठहरता पास का सर। चश्मे सज्जाद से बहने लगे उस वक्त लहू के धारे, जबकि मासूम सकीना को सितमगर ने तमाचे मारे। लाशा साहिल पे तड़पता है उधर और इधर, नोके नेज़ा पे ठहरता नहीं अब्बास का सर। डर है कुलसूम के चेहरे पे न पड़ जाए नज़र, नोके नेज़ा पे ठहरता नहीं अब्बास का सर। या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन बर मोहम्मद वाली मोहम्मद सलावत। Inshallah, brothers and sisters, we have ample time before Salat. Just a few reminders, as it was mentioned before the Majlis. Donations are open. Inshallah, anyone who would like to make any in-person donations, they can do so by reaching out to Sultan Uncle or Brother Azim Anwar on the men's side, or they could also make donations through e-transfer. Also, the initiative that was mentioned for the youngsters on the note-taking, alhamdulillah, we are blessed with our respected Sheikh who's been giving these beautiful talks and encouraging my young brothers and sisters to take notes during it. And inshallah, towards the end of these lecture series, these youngsters, and again, as I mentioned the other day, first and foremost, the reward lies in Allah's hand, and indeed the recognition is through Him. But indeed, just as a token of recognition, all those who participate will also be given a token of appreciation, as well as recognizing the best note taker for their age group, inshallah. So I'll encourage my young brothers and sisters to take part in this initiative, and also encouraging, as it's Salat time approaching, to help lay out the prayer mats as we can inshallah begin the Salat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Also, as mentioned on Saturday night, this will be a Q&A session with our respected Sheikh. We've requested everyone to send us your questions beforehand. So inshallah, to avoid any delay and maximize the time that we have, the opportunity that we have to ask our respected Sheikh. So if you can provide your questions before the date, inshallah, you can write them on in person, give a note to us. Or what you can also do is you can send an email with your questions, and inshallah we'll forward it to our Sheikh to answer them. So a Google form will be sent out on the WhatsApp group as well on the email, where you can enter your questions, and there will be anonymous, so it doesn't matter who wrote it, that information would not be shared. Only the question will be inshallah shared with the Sheikh, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allah.
So for the sisters, inshallah, thank you for providing that cloth. The cloth that you see on the partition, this is where the first row is. So the first row is where on the top, where the green cloth is. This is where the first row is. Our mohar will be over here.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا علي الله ووصي رسول الله وخليفته بلا فصل اللهم صل على أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأمل حي على خير الأمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله صلى الله على محمد أشهد أن عليا ولي الله صلى الله عليه أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلى الله عليه حي على